Have you ever heard of Lilith? Not that distorted figure from modern legends or the fanciful stories that have reached us, but the true Lilith, the forgotten woman, erased from sacred history, who was swept from the biblical narratives and relegated to oblivion. Her name appears only once in the Bible, and even then in an almost imperceptible way, like a whisper erased by time. But who was this mysterious woman who seems to have been wiped from historical records? What did she do to deserve such a fate? What few people know is that long before Eve was created, there was a different woman, strong, fearless, and most importantly, impossible to control. The story that most people know tells us that Eve was created from Adam's rib, made to be his helper and submissive to him. But this version is not complete, and many wonder, what if the real story were different? What if Adam's first woman was not Eve but a woman named Lilith, who was created from the same material as him, without any inferiority, without being molded to be submissive? This version of Lilith, the woman who was created as an equal to Adam, defies all the traditional notions we know. She was not created to obey, she was not created to submit. She believed that she had the right to choose her own destiny, and that desire for freedom and equality is what truly caused her downfall. But what happened to her? Why was her story erased from collective memory? The Bible, which tells the story of creation and of Adam and Eve, is silent about Lilith's fate. And if Lilith's story was hidden forever, what does that reveal about what really happened in that perfect Eden? Lilith did not accept being submissive, and it was that act of rebellion, that challenge to the power of the Creator, that caused her to disappear from the pages of history. But what is known about her? Why do the accounts of Lilith vary so much? And more importantly, did Lilith really disappear, or does her story still resonate today, hidden between the lines of history? Let's explore the mystery of Lilith and try to uncover the truth behind this enigmatic woman who dared to defy destiny. Lilith's story, like many figures forgotten or distorted by tradition, was deliberately erased, but small fragments of her existence survived between the lines. Her name, as I mentioned, is mentioned only once in the Bible, and not even there is she treated with the importance that her figure truly deserves. In Isaiah 34:14, it is said that Lilith would rest among the wild beasts of the desert, but the way the text mentions her is vague, almost enigmatic. The silence about her presence is disturbing, and the lack of details about her true nature only contributes to the mystery surrounding her. But if what we know about Lilith is scarce, what was intentionally suppressed? Historians, theologians, and scholars over the centuries have tried to discover what really happened to Lilith. While most know the biblical version of Eve, the woman, created from a rib to be submissive to Adam, there are ancient records that suggest that the original story was different. According to these sources, Lilith was not secondarily molded from Adam. She was created from the same dust of the earth, from the same essence, equal to him in every way. This equality, however, was seen as a threat. She did not see herself as inferior to Adam, and it was that view that put her in conflict with him. The story that the Bible does not tell is that Lilith, being created from the same material, believed that she should not submit to Adam. She did not see in him a leader, but an equal. This led her to question Adam's orders and eventually to refuse to obey him. This attitude of rebellion was what triggered the first great conflict in Eden. Lilith was not just a woman, but a figure that defied the established order, a force that represented freedom and feminine autonomy, something that the biblical patriarchy was not prepared to accept. Faced with this challenge, and perhaps fearing that her influence would spread, the narrative about Lilith was, in fact, erased. But she did not disappear without leaving traces. Several apocryphal texts and ancient Mesopotamian records mention Lilith differently, suggesting that she was not just a woman, but a figure linked to supernatural forces and deeper mysteries that were beyond human comprehension. Some believe that Lilith, after her rejection in Eden, became an entity that walked between worlds, possessing forbidden knowledge that was guarded at all costs. But if all this is true, why was Lilith's name erased from sacred history? What was done to her after her flight from paradise? And the most unsettling, Does her story still live on even if invisibly among us? Lilith was not simply expelled or abandoned. She made a choice, and that choice changed the course of her story. She did not accept being submissive, did not bow to divine imposition. When confronted with the order to submit to Adam, Lilith made a courageous decision. She fled from Eden. This act of rebellion was the first break with divine order, and by doing so, she threw herself into the unknown, beyond the walls of paradise. But here arises the first great mystery. Where did Lilith go after leaving Eden? The Bible, surprisingly, is silent about her fate, leaving a void in the account. There are no clear records of the steps she took, and this only adds to the enigma of her escape. However, various ancient traditions point to intriguing possibilities. Some accounts speak of a gloomy exile, a cursed destiny, while others suggest that Lilith found something beyond Eden, something that could have turned her flight into a journey of forbidden discoveries. According to some apocryphal texts, Lilith's escape was not a desperate retreat, but a journey toward the occult, toward the forbidden. She would have crossed the boundaries of the known and found a path to the deepest mysteries of human existence. Some say that upon leaving paradise, Lilith discovered secrets that had been guarded since the beginning of time. She encountered forces that belonged to a world beyond humanity, forces that made her more powerful than anyone could imagine. But who or what crossed her path after the escape? Certain texts indicate that Lilith was not alone on her journey. She may have encountered other entities, beings who walked between worlds, such as fallen angels or ancient creatures who possessed profound knowledge about the secrets of the universe. These encounters, if they indeed occurred, would have transformed Lilith into something beyond a mere woman. She was no longer just an exile, but a figure linked to the supernatural, someone with the power to defy divine forces and manipulate the deepest secrets of the world. While some say that Lilith was cursed and transformed into a dark figure, others suggest that she was led to a deep and forbidden knowledge that made her even more powerful. These accounts are not unanimous, but indicate that Lilith's escape was only the beginning of something much greater, something that no one ever dared to fully comprehend. What did she discover beyond the gates of Eden? What happened to Lilith? After her escape, the truth, as always, remains hidden in the shadows of history. After her escape from Eden, Lilith's path becomes shrouded in shadows and enigmas, revealing a hidden world where the boundaries between the sacred and the forbidden blur. By leaving behind the paradise she knew, she not only escaped submission, but entered a universe where ancestral mysteries and forgotten secrets awaited to be discovered. Unlike the predictable destiny of a mere exile, Lilith found in the unknown a repository of secret knowledge that defied the established laws of the universe. In this new scenario, Lilith's figure is enriched by encounters that transform her identity. Some ancient accounts mention that she came across the Watchers, enigmatic beings who belong neither to the celestial realm nor the earthly, but who guarded forbidden knowledge since the dawn of creation. These beings, described in Sumerian, tablets and apocryphal texts, would have been the true keepers of hidden mysteries, capable of manipulating forces that exceeded human understanding. Lilith, upon crossing paths with them, was instigated to uncover secrets that should never have been revealed. By absorbing this knowledge, Lilith ceased to be just a fugitive and transformed into a figure of power and ambiguity. The knowledge she acquired linked her directly to the mysteries of existence, of creation, and even of the fall. This forbidden learning not only enabled her to question the divine order that had condemned her, but also to transform her own essence, bringing her closer to the condition of an almost mythical entity. Amid this process, she became a link between the human world and ancient forces, challenging the very notion of destiny and imposed control. These revelations occur in an environment laden with symbolism. The encounter with the Watchers is not just a narrative of supernatural meetings, but represents the eternal human quest for answers that surpass the limited understanding of existence. Lilith, by accessing these mysteries, comes to personify the duality between the light of knowledge and the darkness of the forbidden. Her journey through the unknown illustrates the conflict between the search for truth and the forces that seek to keep such secrets buried. Thus, the account of the hidden mysteries reveals not only a woman who defied the established orders, but also a guardian of secrets that echo through time. This forbidden knowledge that she acquired raises unsettling questions. To what extent can knowledge transform a person? And what are the dangers of touching on mysteries that lie beyond human comprehension? These questions remain as an invitation for the public to continue investigating the true essence of Lilith. What happens when someone refuses to submit to divine order? When a defiant figure does not accept the role imposed on her, rejecting the idea of being controlled? Lilith, by doing exactly that, was not just breaking a rule of Eden, but challenging the very foundation of the celestial order. She firmly believed that having been created from the same material as Adam, she had the same rights and the same freedom. The idea of being submissive to him was an affront to her essence, to her freedom. The narrative that the Bible presents about the creation of Eve, a woman molded from Adam's rib to be his helper, omits the existence of a woman before her. Lilith, on the contrary, was created from the same dust as Adam, and that equality was reflected not only in her body, but also in her worldview. She did not want to be submissive to anyone, neither to Adam himself, nor to the Creator. By refusing to obey, Lilith positions herself as the first rebel, the first human being to question divine authority. This conflict with Adam was not merely a trivial disagreement. It became the catalyst for the creation of a narrative of exclusion and rejection. According to some versions, Lilith's refusal to submit led to a direct confrontation between her and Adam, and she was expelled from Eden. However, this expulsion was not something passive or unilateral. Lilith was not a mere victim, but a determined woman with an unyielding strength that defied Adam's authority, and by extension the authority of the Creator. But what does that represent? For many scholars and theologians, Lilith represents something much greater than just a rebellious figure. She symbolizes the principle of unconditional freedom, the quest for autonomy, and the right to decide one's own destiny, regardless of established norms. Her refusal to submit, therefore, goes beyond a mere transgression. It becomes a powerful metaphor for all who fight against structures of power and control, whether in a religious, social, or political context. But the big question is, what was the true cost of this rebellion? If Lilith was truly such a dangerous figure, why was her story deliberately erased from the biblical and historical tradition? Was the narrative manipulated to silence the voice of the woman who refused to be controlled? Or was her true strength perceived as a threat not only to male dominance, but to the very divine status quo? With Lilith's exclusion arises another question. Was history written to perpetuate a model of subordination, where the role of the woman should be that of helper and submissive? Lilith, by refusing to accept that fate, became a symbol of resistance, but also a reminder that those who dare to defy the established order are often erased from history. Lilith's escape was not merely an act of escapism, but a true turning point that resonated through the ages. By leaving Eden, she not only rejected an imposed destiny, but also inaugurated a legacy that challenges established paradigms and questions the structures of divine and social power. Her decision to leave broke the cycle of submission and acceptance, giving rise to a narrative of resistance that endures to this day. After the escape, Lilith became a symbol of a rebellion that goes beyond mere disobedience. She came to represent the freedom of choice, autonomy, and the right of every being to determine their own path. This impact resonates strongly in contemporary contexts, where the quest for equality and female empowerment is a central issue. Lilith, by refusing to be molded by pre-established expectations and rules, created a legacy that inspires those who find themselves marginalized or subjugated by oppressive systems. Lilith's legacy also manifests in the way history was written and rewritten. The traditional narrative, which privileges the figure of Eve as the first woman, ends up silencing the existence of a protagonist who dared to defy the status quo. This manipulation of historical accounts demonstrates how control over memory and narrative can be used to perpetuate power structures. Thus, Lilith transforms into a symbol of everything that was intentionally erased or distorted to maintain an order of subordination. Furthermore, the impact of her escape extends to the realm of knowledge and mysticism. The rumors and legends that arose around her journey fuel the idea that Lilith would have acquired forbidden knowledge and a deep connection with ancestral forces. This association with the occult and the mysterious reinforces the image of a woman who not only rebelled, but who transformed herself into the guardian of secrets that defy human understanding. Her story is evoked in ancient texts and myths that cross cultures, revealing a presence that transcends time and space. Therefore, Lilith's legacy is multifaceted. It manifests as a symbol of resistance against oppression, as a challenge to the dominant narrative, and as a bridge between the human world and the mysteries of the unknown. At the same time, her story continues to inspire debates about freedom, empowerment, and the right of each individual to define their own existence. The impact of her escape is thus an invitation to reflect on the hidden truths and on the paths we choose to follow. Lilith's story was never just about rebelling against a system. It was, in fact, an existential struggle against the destiny imposed on her. By defying Adam and by leaving Eden, Lilith not only refused subordination to a man, but rejected a celestial narrative that intended to define her role within an ordered and controlled cosmos. She became the archetype of the woman who refuses to submit to a predetermined fate, a woman who does not accept the limits of her destiny, but seeks her own existence unchained. Lilith's act, therefore, was not just a rupture with divine order, but with the very concept of destiny. She challenged the idea that creation must follow a pre-established line, a sequence of events that everyone must fulfill without question. Her escape, far from being a mere quest for freedom, was a manifestation of the eternal struggle between free will and determinism. In her journey, Lilith personified the rebellion against divine destiny, challenging the idea that everyone must follow a path already written for them. This eternal conflict of Lilith is not a struggle solely against the figures who directly opposed her, such as Adam or the angels sent to bring her back, but against the very concept of obedience that pervades human history. She represents all, those who fight against the imposition of predefined roles by society, by religion, or by power structures. Her story is, in many ways, a metaphor for those who dare to defy the conventions and norms of a system that all too often seeks to repress their freedom. In various cultures throughout history, Lilith was seen as both a feared and revered figure, a woman who did not fit into the traditional expectations of femininity or subordination. But is this fear a reflection of her true nature, or an attempt to suppress a much more powerful idea? Over the centuries, Lilith's figure has often been associated with strong women who, in some way, defied the established order, whether they were witches, priestesses, or leaders of feminist movements. This raises a crucial question. Is Lilith really an evil figure, as some traditions suggest, or does she represent the struggle for freedom and autonomy? This dilemma of Lilith, between being a demonized figure and a heroine of freedom, continues to echo in modern culture. Her fight against the imposed destiny is, after all, a reflection of the choices we all make regarding our own path. Thus, Lilith's story is not just about a woman who rebelled against an outdated system, but about how all stories of resistance are, in fact, stories of liberation, of the soul, of the mind, and of the body. Lilith's story, the woman who defied divine order, reveals something deep and powerful: the eternal conflict between subordination and freedom, between imposed destiny and individual choice. Her escape from Eden was not merely an act of rebellion, but a milestone in the quest for autonomy, for equality, and for the right to live unchained. Lilith, by defying the Creator, became a symbol of resistance and a mythical figure whose legacy still echoes in contemporary debates about freedom and individual rights. Although her story was erased from the pages of the Bible and religious tradition, Lilith never completely disappeared. She lives on in legends, myths, and cultures that over the centuries have continued to revere her as a figure of strength, independence, and forbidden knowledge. Her struggle and the legacy she left remains a powerful reminder that those who defy established norms can change the course of history, whether silently or with great impact. Now, more than ever, it is time for us to reflect on the true meaning of freedom and resistance. If Lilith were a woman of the past, her story could have been forgotten, but she survived. She continues to be a voice for those who refuse to accept what is imposed upon them, and a symbol for all who fight against the forces that seek to control them. If you have read this far, it means that the truth of Lilith needs to be heard and shared. Comment Amen in the comments, show that you have followed this journey, and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the great revelations that are yet to come. Lilith's legacy, and that of so many other figures erased from history, is still alive, and what you do with this truth is in your hands. See you in the next video.